Okay, please go into Canvas and find major sociological theories, symbolic interactionism. Okay, we've got two things to do. As always, we've got our fillable PDF. So please download that. Open a new tab. Open Cami from your bookmarks bar. All right, drag and drop. Okay. You shouldn't be seeing that today. If we don't finish these notes today, which we usually don't finish them in one day, then you'll want to open that tomorrow. Okay. All right. Okay, and we want to pick up right here, and you're just going to follow these as we go. But before we actually start the notes, you need to click the link to go to Pear Deck. I'll get that code up on the screen here in just a second. Well, let's say just a second. All right, there's your code. Okay, we should be good to continue. If you've not yet joined, that code's going to remain up there in the upper right-hand corner. And of course, what we are talking about today is symbolic interactionism. To help us understand what makes this a distinct theory, we first need to understand different levels. Right? Functionalism and conflict theory are macro-level theories. And what that means is that they emphasize the big things. In terms of explaining what happens in the society, the answers are big. The answers are about the structures, the large structures of society. For functionalism, it's institutions like the government. Government gives us law and order. It gives us a pension in our old age. It provides the schools that teach us not only math and reading, but also things like civics so that we can be good citizens. Conflict theory emphasizes big economic structures, particularly the classes. So think here, right? In this old political cartoon, we've got the capitalist monopoly, right, or monopolists, right, gobbling up the whole country. Big things. Big explanations. Tori, up there by that globe, and then I'll get a new box for back here. Symbolic interactionism, by contrast, focuses on the micro level. It is very interested in, let's see if we can move this. Let me see if I can make that come back. It's chopped off a little bit. It sees individuals in society as the most important things. And to understand this, we've got our second image here. So we've got the large mass of people, and we've got the one individual with a whip. Right? And at first, everybody cowers and bows down to the person with the whip except for one lone figure. But that one lone figure makes an example that other people follow. Pretty soon, that influence grows, and now the figure with the whip is the one bowing down before everyone else. Symbolic interactionism acknowledges the group. It doesn't ignore the big things in society, but it really highlights how individual actions can reshape the big things. As we meet symbolic interactionism, we're going to meet another deceased white man, George Herbert Mead. Now, he didn't actually call what he was doing symbolic interactionism, but his studies became kind of the basis for this branch of sociology. Mead emphasized the relationships people have with one another. Specifically, relationships based on communication. And now you might be seeing how we get symbolic interactionism. We talked about communication through symbols. And also language. And those two things, symbols and language, are how people understand the social world around them. And in terms of that, just for some examples, for symbols, flags are symbols that help people understand the social world. People attach all kinds of meaning to the United States flag, for example. But you guys also associate importance to symbols, maybe such as the brand name stamped on the back of your phone's case. Those are important. And of course, language, right, how we talk about things, helps shape our understanding of the social world. We'll spend a little more time with that notion when we get to culture. And also, how we interact with the things around us. Folding chairs, for example. I know you guys, we're never going to quite escape folding chairs and wrestling and space aliens. Communication via symbols and language help us understand how we interact with the things around us. And all of those meanings that we attach to things and symbols and language are shaped by our social interactions with one another. Okay. For example, right, a person in our part of the country, the Midwest, who grew up going to the range, right, or maybe even going out in the backyard or going into the woods and shooting recreationally, shooting targets, what's often referred to as plinking, or hunting, would probably have positive feelings towards firearms. They would be like pretty special possessions in a family. And they'd be something you would take care of and you might have inherited from a generation before you and you might hand down to the next generation. On the other hand, if you grew up someplace very different, If you grew up perhaps in Syria, which suffered an absolute civil war, just wrecked the country, you would probably feel negatively about firearms. It's based on your interactions and understanding. There's a big difference if Hattie grows up with an uncle who teaches her how to shoot and how to hunt, versus if Hattie grows up where the only people she sees with guns are the people that intimidate and try to hurt her and her family. It's very different experiences and very different feelings about those things. Mead also argued that our very perceptions, now perception is usually something we deal with in, say, Mr. Fox's psychology classes, how our brains process the world around us. That's perception. But Mead said, look, the social world shapes our perceptions. And if it shapes how we perceive the world, it shapes how we behave in that environment. Another way to think about this, right, our culture shapes our perceptions and also our beliefs. And perceptions and belief drive our behavior. Psychologists would be very much on board with that. Another example. In social interactions with other Americans, you are expected to maintain consistent eye contact. Matter of fact, part of why I walk around the room isn't just that I'm antsy or trying to get the steps in on my Fitbit. I don't have a Fitbit, so that's not the explanation, right? But partly so that I can walk around the room and make eye contact with my students, because we've been taught that it is polite to maintain eye contact with people you're talking to. On the other hand, right, if I were talking to a Japanese person, chances are behaving like an American could make them uncomfortable. And at least they're not going to reciprocate my behavior unless they've been here a while and learned how we have done things and have adjusted that. Japanese people avoid eye contact because in their culture, that is good manners. So if you're talking to someone who's Japanese, especially if you're doing so in Japan, it's likely that they will look at you. It's not like they're going to turn their back on you, but they might look here or they might look here, but they're not going to stare you in the eyes because that is seen as potentially aggressive, right, and at least disrespectful. So different notions, right? Shapes our perceptions of what eye contact means, shapes our beliefs, right, about what constitutes good manners, and therefore shapes our behavior, right, whether we make eye contact or don't make eye contact. Okay. Another way thinking about this comes from Irving Goffman. And I like this explanation, which is kind of why I share it with you. He thought about it as us being kind of actors. And the social world gives us different scripts to follow in different situations, right? And we just have parts to play. This makes me think, this will mean nothing to you, but I have to share it anyway, of a fantastic song by the Canadian rock band Rush called All the World's a Stage. Very much fits with this. We have scripts and we act out our parts based on the context around us. We know what to do in different situations. Okay. Based on our context, and so we approach a situation, right? We read the context, we follow previously established patterns of behavior. Just think about that. For one thing, right? When you guys walk into your home, right, you may head for the most comfortable chair in the room and sit down, right, when you get home from school. Right? You're reading the context and following previously established pattern of behavior. Right? But when you guys walk into this room, none of you heads for the most comfortable chair in the room. Why not? Brandy, you just looked at. Why don't you go for that chair? It's so close to where you're sitting, and it is, even if it's not a fantastic chair, it is still much, much better than the one you've got. Why don't you sit in that chair? Because it's my chair, right? It's a different context, right? Exactly. Yes, Rain. Also, we're expected to act differently here. Right. You have a different script that's handed to you here versus at home, right? Some of you, this is becoming less true the longer I have been a teacher, right? Some of you realize that when you come into a classroom, right, your script does not include profanity, right? Whereas at home, your script might include profanity, right? For me growing up, right, my school script and my home script did not include profanity. Hanging out with my friends in the garage working on cars included much profanity, right? And many dirty jokes, right? Different scripts, right? Very different scripts. Okay. Goffman and Mead tell us that over time we can change those scripts, right? We can rewrite them, so to speak. And that, again, that's definitely been my experience as a teacher. Okay. An example of this that's been kind of part of our world here in the school setting and just about everywhere else, greetings since COVID. Now, I didn't do this for Pear Deck, but what would you do when greeting someone before the pandemic? Yeah, shake their hand, right? And I will tell you, so for me, I was definitely a handshaker. I was never a hugger. Don't go there, right? I have an uncle. My aunt has been married 4 times, and this guy is a hugger, and he's huge. And I hate hugging him because it's always like right here, like my face hits him right here, and it's just not pleasant, right? And it always feels like an act of domination. It's not. He really is like a nice-hearted guy, but I'm not a hugger. But I was a handshaker. I mean, that was my thing. And Jazzle, I hated the fist bump. I'll just be honest with all of you. I hated the fist bump. Right? It seemed very impersonal and informal, and a handshake was infinitely superior. But then the pandemic happened. Right? Okay. Is shaking hands, I mean, it's starting to change again, right? But is shaking hands still acceptable for most people? No, for most people, I mean, even people previously that we always shook hands, right? It's gone to an elbow or a fist bump. Right? So yeah, the elbow or the fist bump has replaced the handshake. And again, it may shift back. Some of my handshakers are returning to that practice. And I don't think some of them will never go back. Right? Scripts change. Did you need me to go back, or were you just having a moment of shock? Yeah, that's okay. It's okay. We'll explain. Yeah, Aiden.
This also reminds you that that blind cave beetle that was named after Hitler.
Really? I did not know about this.
Yeah, it was discovered in 1933, and they called it something Hitlaris or something.
And it was a blind cave beetle.
Yeah.
Did they not know what was going to happen to anybody considered to be physically disabled in the Reich? Okay. Yeah, it was a little early. Maybe they hadn't quite figured out how things were going to turn out yet. In 1930, most people hadn't. Right? That's fair. But no, I'll have to look that up, Aiden. I didn't know about that. All right. So we've already been introduced to the idea that we can rewrite our scripts. This happens through communication. I mean, we had government printing posters, putting out ads on the internet, TV, everywhere else, right, about how to not contract COVID, and one of those things was not shaking hands, right? That's how the elbow and the fist bump, right, were encouraged in very official ways. We meet some new people. I'm not obsessed with learning about them, but I need to give them credit for this, right? Language and symbols. Again, that's the key here for the communication we're talking about. It's not just what I say. It's not just what we write. It's about interactions between individuals. And again, sorry that recording thing is blocking us out. It's weird. Well, actually, I don't think that will even fix it. All right. But it is interactions between individuals. All right. So let's think about the swastika. Something very specific to us. What does the swastika mean? Of all those images, which is the one that sticks? Which is the one? Is it the Coca-Cola? That's the one that's like our understanding of the swastika. When Estelle thinks of the swastika, Estelle suddenly is like craving Coca-Cola. Right? Or Rebecca sees it, she's like, oh man, a game of gin rummy would be just the thing right now. Right? Or, man, I would really love some California citrus. That's what we think of with the swastika. Oh, no, Rain, you're telling me it's that one. It's the Hitler. No. Sorry, it's like which of those images of the swastika is the? I didn't phrase it very well. Is the enduring one? Well, and it turns out it's Hitler, right? It's the Nazis, right? Even though they manipulated how the swastika, the angle, and the reversal, and all of that stuff, right? That's become the dominant association with that symbol. Now, to explore some of these ideas, the swastika we could think of as, it's always going to be associated with Hitler. But there are people talking about the future of it taking on its old meaning or something different to what it's ever meant before. Let's consider that point of view. All right, what do you guys think? Are we going to reach that point in time where in the Western world, Europe, America, that we're going to stop seeing the swastika as a symbol of hate and the Nazis? No, Tatum, you're not convinced that that's going to happen. Why not? Can't we just go back to putting it on citrus containers and playing cards and just like tell everybody that it means something different now?
It's because we still learn it in school.
Yeah, so one, you still learn it in school. So the guy's right. At some point, it will become ancient history. But we're a long way from that. And America loves World War II. I mean, just loves it. It made more sense to me when I was about your age because World War II vets were all around me. I mean, my grandfather was one. I mean, both of my grandfathers were, but one died when I was 5. But I had the other one until I was 20. I mean, they were all over the place. Right? And so, I mean, we still celebrate Pearl Harbor. Yes, that was the Japanese, but that's what got us to war with the Germans. We still celebrate Veterans Day on the same day that we first beat the Germans. And so, yeah, so Taylor, we're still taught it in schools very much around us. What else, Jaslyn?
So before they start talking about the Nazis, they should teach people like how like the symbol came about and like the original meaning behind this.
So we could still teach it, right? The way Tatum suggests, we're still going to teach about the Nazis, but we could, right, start to introduce how that symbol was distorted, right, as a way of kind of letting people know it doesn't have to be this way. Okay, Aiden.
Would the imperial Japanese flag be like the swastika of the Nazis in Asia because of like the Japanese sun from like the imperial time?
Yeah.
Those with how
The rays.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's why they use that one now, right? I mean, that's the same, kind of thing. But the Japanese have done away with that, but of course they've got their own issue with teaching or not teaching the history of what they did in Asia prior to and during World War II. Yeah, Rebecca.
Well, people still use the Nazi symbol for like its original purpose too, so it's not going away.
Right. Yeah, that's the other thing. I mean, as long as you've got neo-Nazis running around holding their rallies and using it, then that's hard because we haven't reached the point where people have. Not only are we still learning about it and what it did mean, but for a lot of people, it still means that, and they keep it alive with that meaning. Yeah. I think we're a long way from Coca-Cola launching a new ad campaign using the swastika. I think that's fair to say. All right, nicely done, guys. Let's. I don't want to start this yet. Go ahead and stop your notes right there. Get them turned in.